WFNY BrownsCast with your host Joe Gilbert. I am on my own again as Taylor is honeymooning after the big weekend last week. So congratulations to Taylor. But I'm here to get you ready for Browns Bengals Monday Night Football. Big game for obviously the Browns, but also the Bengals because it's the AFC North division game. So going to be a big matchup. This is the WFNY BrownsCast, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. And today we're actually brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. It's gambling is about to be legal in Ohio next year, and Underdog can be one of your places to go. We've got a great deal with Underdog for the first-time depositors. Enter in the code WFNY at checkout, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Underdog is a great platform if you're tired of DFS salary system. There are tons of games, types, and drafts every night of the week for every sport. Don't forget to use WFNY at checkout to get your first-time deposit matched up to $100. So yeah, that's Underdog. So Underdog Fantasy. But yeah, so we're back. Kind of just going over what happened last week. There's another kind of failure by the Browns to kind of finish off the game. They had chances to win, and they once again fell short of those chances. We had a tough game. The Browns had a tough game on offense and special teams. The defense actually stepped up, which is still surprising that the one team that Joe Woods seems to be able to kind of play well against is the Lamar Jackson Baltimore Ravens, which you wouldn't think that would be. But his defense played as well as you could expect, as you would hope. And they still lost. It was because the offense didn't do much during the middle of the game, and the special teams just were really outmanned by Baltimore. It was night and day. You could see the difference in terms of special teams. Baltimore has one of the top special teams in the league, and the Browns have one of the worst. And it was seen. The field position was huge. Baltimore scored a couple scores off of good field position, and that's kind of when it's a tight game like that can be the difference, and it was. In terms of the offense, I know everyone keeps talking about the run game and why Chubb's not getting the ball, but as I said during the post game show, for much of the game, he was averaging 2.6 yards per carry. Baltimore was gaming for them to slow down the run game and to force Jacoby to beat them, and that's what happened. There's this stat that was out I saw on Twitter that if he gets I believe it's 20 carries or something, the Browns are some good record or something. Those are just, you can pull stats like that anywhere. It's a matter of what the defense is giving you and what he's been doing. He was the whole run game was averaging 1.9 yards or 1.5, I believe it was, or something like that for much of the game. And as a play caller, you can't just keep doing something that's being unsuccessful. So I'm still not going to blame Stefanski. He's got the 8th ranked offense according to DVOA in the league, and it's just not something I'm going to blame him for. He's got a quarterback who's a backup quarterback, and there's just so much he can do. The last 2 games, the offense has struggled, but the past other games he's been pretty successful. So there's nothing. It's frustrating to hear that people are blaming all these things on Stefanski when he's got Joe Woods on the other side just completely failing except for one game. Like, so it's frustrating to see the kind of the narrative around. Um, we should have expected this. We had a backup quarterback for the first 11 games. It's where the Browns are at. It's where they put themselves, and we probably should have saw this coming that they weren't going to be able to survive as well as we would hoped. But here we are, entering week 8. Browns are 2-5, entering this big time matchup versus the Bengals, who are 3-4 or 4-3. Sorry, 4-3 in first place, along with Baltimore. So, big matchup. As I said last week in the preview for the Baltimore game, these next 2 games are huge. If they can split them, they have a chance. If they get swept, it's a huge uphill battle because they'll be behind 3 games if they lose this one. So big game. Browns have to kind of get things ready and see if they can beat the Bengals. They've been pretty successful against them lately, even with Joe Burrow under center, they've been able to perform well. So we'll see how it goes. But in terms of the Bengals, kind of previewing them, they are Joe Burrow centric, especially even more than usual because their run game hasn't performed up to their level that we saw even last year. So it's a Joe Burrow. He's averaging, I believe it was 299 passing yards per game. His pass rating is 102. He's got 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And then just in terms of the run game, Joe Mixon's only averaging 57 yards per game, and he's only got 2 touchdowns. So this is a very pass-centric offense. They're gonna beat you through the air. It's just a matter of kind of forcing mistakes for Joe Burrow, which he can do. If he's shown 5 interceptions so far this year, and then kind of limiting the run games. If you give Joe Burrow a run game, it's gonna be tough sledding. On defense, they're pretty much built like the Bengals offense actually, because they're pretty well able to defend the pass. I believe they are, according to PFF, they have the the 9th best grade in coverage. Their pass rush is pretty good too. They're 13th rated. They have 2 really good ones on their line. They have Hendrickson and Hubbard, who are playing really well on the edges, so they can get after you. But they do struggle versus the run. They are way down the list. They're 21st in the league in run defense grade, according to PFF. So it's definitely one of those situations where I think the Browns can be successful versus the run, because, and we've seen it in years last year, they were successful running against them. So I think that's going to be kind of their kind of the way they're going to handle it. So in terms of the Browns' advantages on offense, as I said, the key, I don't know how many times we say it every week, but the key player is going to be Chubb and the run game. It's going to be the offensive line. The offensive line got beat up last week, quite frankly. Their run blocking wasn't great for much of the game. They gave up a lot of sacks to the Baltimore defense. So the Browns' offensive line might be the key to this game. They have to be able to block and win the trenches. They have to get this run game going again. It's gonna be a tough one because the Bengals are probably gonna do the same thing that the Patriots and the Ravens have done and go go all out to force the run game to be slowed down. But at some point, the offensive line just has to step up and say, "Hey, we're good enough to be able to create yardage for this talented running back." So I think that's the offensive line is going to be a key to a successful Browns offense. On defense, this is going to come down to it's going to down to the kind of the pass rush for the Browns, because the one thing that the Bengals are not too good at is their offensive line. They played better the last couple weeks, but it's still not the best offensive line, and they can be handled if you got a good defensive line. And we have two good edge rushers in Clowney and Miles Garrett. So I believe it's going to come down to we got to get pressure on Burrow, got to force him to have some mistakes, force him into mistakes. Because if you let him sit in the pocket, and he's going to kill you, because the receivers are so talented. That's going to be a huge kind of difference in the game if they can't get to Burrow and kind of his working, kind of his mental rushes mechanics, and kind of get rushes decisions. That was the word I was just trying to find. Rush's decision. It's gonna be a long day for this defense, because Burrow and this receiving core are just gonna kill you, and especially against this Browns defense secondary, who's can't talk to each other, has had mental breakdowns and miscommunication. So it's gonna be a tough matchup if they can't get after Joe Burrow and win the trenches. So just overall, I think that the offensive line and the defensive line are going to be the keys to the Browns winning this game. So as I said, we'll get to the keys here. The Browns, they need to win the trenches, both sides of the ball. They have the advantage, quite frankly. I think on both sides. I think the edge rushers are really good for the Browns. Obviously, Garrett and Clowney, and they should be able to handle the Bengals' two offensive tackles, Jonah Williams and Lyle Collins. I believe they're better than both of them, and they should be able to kind of take advantage of that. And then on offense, the Bengals do have good edge rushers in Hendrickson and Hubbard, but the middle of the interior is pretty weak. So I think the Browns should be able to kind of create some interior run game here. So hopefully we can see Chubb and Hunt kind of get established and kind of punch them in the mouth for straight ahead, because that's going to be key. Winning the trenches on both sides of the ball, and running the ball, establishing the run, and then getting after Burrow. Those are going to be huge, because if they can't, if it's going to come down to Brissett trying to beat this Bengal secondary, it's not going to go well, because it's a good secondary, and we've seen over the last couple of weeks where Brissett is just not that guy. He's not the guy to kind of lead your offense into winning games. And then so it's gonna be a tough matchup if it can't win the trenches. Against this Bengals offense, as I said, they have to get after Burrow, because if you let him sit back there and just pick you apart, he will do that, especially with these talented receivers and Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. They're gonna be they're gonna kill you. If you don't get after Joe Burrow, he's going to kill you, because he doesn't relent. He's gonna come after you. So the Browns, Miles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, and the rest of the crew have to get after him, have to put pressure on him, have to get him to throw the ball quicker because limit the big plays and allow this Brown secondary not to have to play coverage for too long against these three talented receivers. So those are the keys. It's pretty simple. I really have one kind of major key: is just win the trenches on both sides of the ball, and that will result in a good run game and then getting after Burrow. So that's my keys there. The special teams has to be better. The Bengals are pretty good on special teams. They pretty solid, I would say, in terms of special teams. They have a good kicker, and so he's one of the he's sort of Joe Flacco light, as I would like to say. Not Joe Flacco. Sorry, not Joe Flacco. As I was saying, Evan McPherson is sort of the light version of Justin Tucker. He's obviously not as elite because Justin Tucker is the greatest kicker of all time, I would say. But Evan McPherson is definitely a kicker that can make any length of field goals. He's pretty good. You could see him in the playoffs last year. He made some huge kicks for him. So it's definitely they're going to have to. It's going to be a tough matchup on special teams again for the Browns. They have to play better. I don't know how Prefer keeping his job, but his unit has to play better if they want to. This has to be a full team contribution this week because this is a really good Bengals team that's playing really well right now, and they have to play as a team to win this game. So yeah, those are the keys. Let's get to our prop bets. So last week we had Gerbs come in too, along with Taylor. So last week I went 4-4. It's pretty much my record. I'm going 500 almost every week. It seems like. Taylor went 3-5, and Gerbs with his first kind of time into this game, he went 6-2. So that was pretty impressive by him. So on the season, I'm 18-22, and Taylor is 22-18. So kind of flip flop. Last week, we all had the Browns +6, and the Browns lost by 3. So you still got that. Over under 45.5. It was under that. It was 23-20. So it was 43. Gerbs had the under, so he had that correct. The really surprising one was Lamar Jackson, 315 total yards. We all thought it would be over that, and he only had 179, so he wasn't even close. That's the frustrating part of that game. They held Lamar to 179 total yards, and they still lost. Like that's pretty crushing. Kind of had that good of a defensive performance, and they still couldn't bring in the victory. Chubb, we all had over on 100 rushing yards, but he only had 91 yards. So as I said, the Ravens played to stop Chubb, and they did for much of the game, and he only got 91 yards. One of the other surprising things on the Ravens offense was Mark Andrews had 0 receiving yards. We all had over except for Gerbs, who thought he would be under that, but he also thought he would get 2 touchdowns. So we all thought he was going to have a big game, but Mark Andrews had 0. So Gerbs was correct on the receiving yards there. We were all correct on Jacoby Brissett's completion percentage. He did turn it around from the last couple of weeks where he struggled with the completion percentage. He completed 81% of his passes on Sunday, so that was a better game from him in terms of accuracy. Most receptions, me and Gerbs were correct with David Njoku. He had 7. Even with when he left the game early, he still still led the team in 7 receptions. And then we all were right in picking the Ravens. Gerbs Gerbs said the wheels would fall off, so they didn't really fall off, but they still did pick the Ravens. I said Ravens 27-24, so I was close. I was probably the closest. And then Ravens, Taylor had Ravens 31-26. So that was kind of the recap of how it went last week. But this week, Taylor is on his honeymoon, so he wasn't able to turn in his stuff. But I have Gerb's stuff again. Gerb's picks for this week. So the first one is Browns +3. We are both going Cincy. I just don't have a lot of confidence in this Browns team right now. And Browns +3 is it's just a little too small of a margin. So I think Cincinnati will win and by more than 3, as does Gerbs. As you'll see in this prediction coming up here. Over under 47.5 points is where the points total is at. So we're a bit different here. Gerbs has the under on that one, but I think it's going to be over. I really think it's going to be a high scoring game. Burrow and the Bengals offense is playing well, and I think they're gonna put up some points. And Browns have to keep up if they want to kind of win this game. So I think they'll get over on that 47.5 points. Joe Burrow, 300 passing yards, over under. We're both over on this one. He does average 299.6 yards per game, so it's going to be slightly above his average, but against the secondary, I just don't have a lot of high hopes that the Browns can slow Joe Burrow down, especially with this receiving core. Denzel Ward may not play. Still don't know his status so far, but this is what his 3rd concussion in his career, and you gotta play it safe here. So he could be out, and he's performed well versus Jamar Chase, but if Ward is not out there, so it could be a tough day for the Browns secondary. So I think we're both going to be over. We're both guessing over on 300 passing yards for Burrow. As I was talking about Jamar Chase, his total is going to be 86.5 receiving yards, over under of that. We're both again over on that number. I think it will come down to whether Ward is healthy and playing well, because if he's healthy, he's still got to play well, because he has not played well during his season so far this year. He's played probably one good game, but he's had a tough year, and Jamar Chase is is probably the best receiver he's going to face so far this year, and if he even does play. Even if Ward plays, I think Chase will still get 86.5 yards receiving yards, and Gerbs agrees too. Okay, Chubb, 92.5 rushing yards. So last week he had 91. He's gotten over 100. He's gotten under 100. So this is a pretty good number. So I'm going. Gerbs is going under. So he's probably thinking that this is going to be a game where the Browns have to play catch up and throw the ball more. But I think he'll actually get over. I think the Browns have had success running against the Bengals defense. I think their run defense is even worse this year. So I think Chubb can get over that 92.5 yards rushing yards. Next one is over under 64.5 receiving yards for Amari Cooper. Me and Gerbs are both over on this. I think this is pretty easy in my view, because with David Njoku likely out, even though he's saying he may be able to play, I doubt he would be on the field, and that leaves Amari Cooper as by far the top receiver out there. So I think the Browns and Brissett will target Cooper quite often, and he'll get over that 64.5. And then kind of a interesting one here. Most receiving yards besides Cooper and DPJ, and this is barring, and I'll add Njoku in there. I don't think Njoku will play, but I'll just throw him in there. Besides Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku, who's going to have the most receptions? Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Harrison Bryant, David Bell, or the field? Gerbs went kind of a bit of a surprise one, I think, but he went with David Bell. So I think he's seeing that maybe this will be a game that the rookie can step up and show what he's got. I'm going with Harrison Bryant. I think he'll sub in for Njoku. I just really have a hard. It's hard to see Njoku being able to play after a mild high ankle sprain. That's especially with the bye week afterwards. I don't think the Browns will want to put him out there. So I think Bryant will step in for Njoku and be the kind of next person in line to get the targets. I think he's been targeted he's been targeted often. Besides the top three guys here, so I think Bryant will kind of step in Njoku's spot and get the most receptions besides Cooper and DBJ, and if Njoku plays. Okay, so the final one is just our game prediction. We're both going Bengals. Groves has Bengals 31-14, which is going to be brutal if that happens. I think it's going to be closer than that. I think Bengals 31-24. As I said, it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be 55 points, as I am predicting. But I just think the Bengals are playing so much better than the Browns right now. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, one of the best probably the best receiving core in the league. And I just don't know if the Browns can keep up with that offense. And especially, I don't think the defense is good enough to kind of slow them down. This is a whole different animal than the Ravens offense. This is a heavy pass oriented, and the Browns secondary, I just have no faith in them. They've struggled all year, and I think they're going to struggle in this game. So I think Bengals 31-24. This is just kind of my final thoughts here is the Browns are in a tough spot. They have to win this game. There's no like kind of, they could maybe survive if they get high. This is going to be a 3-game deficit already after week 8. They can't fall more behind. They can't fall that far behind, especially with how the Bengals are playing right now. This is a must win. Browns have to win it if they want to kind of stay in the playoff race and kind of stay afloat while they wait for Deshaun Watson to come off suspension. This is a must win. There's no sugarcoating it. It's a must win. And if they don't win it, this week could be interesting because it's the trade deadline next, I think, Tuesday, and then it'll be leading into the bye week. So there could be some changes on the horizon if they lose this game and lose it kind of ugly. So it's kind of put up or shut up here. The Browns have to win, and we'll see if they can do it. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But it's going to be fun to kind of watch them on Monday Night Football on Halloween. I won't be there. I couldn't make it during that game, so I'll be joining you probably after the game. Immediately after the game, so take a listen, and you can see me afterwards. And this is just another WFNY BrownsCast preview podcast, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. And thanks for joining us. And go Browns.